Welcome back to Review Crew. I'm Owen.
I'm Saachi.
And today we'll be reviewing Minari. Check out the trailer.
David, look! They're wheels! Wheels?
여기 대체 어디야?
집이지. 우리 새로 시작한다고 그랬잖아. 이게 그거야. 아빠는 빅 가든 하나 만들 거야.
What a wonderful day to be in the house of the Lord. If you're here with us for the first time, please stand. What a beautiful family. Glad you're here.
How's your daddy like that new farm? He growing things good, doing things right?
Yes.
미국 애들은 할머니랑 같이 방 쓰는 거 싫어한다던데.
But I don't like Grandma.
쟤는 안 그래요. 한국애니까.
Grandma smells like Korea.
야, 뭐라고? 그랜마 스멜?
우리 여기 있다가 망할 거야. 애들을 위해서라도 한 번 더 생각해 볼 수 있잖아.
애들도 한 번쯤 아빠가 뭔가 해내는 거 봐야 될 거 아니야.
깨라 이놈아.
할머니는 진짜 할머니 같지 않아요.
할머니 같은 게 뭔데?
쿠키도 만들고 나쁜 안 입고 남자 팬티도 안 입고.
We need to find water somewhere. If that soil ain't wet, we're gonna lose the crop.
결혼하면서 했던 말 기억나? 미국에 가서 서로를 구해주자고 했던 거.
기억해.
어이, 프리티 보이, 프리티 보이.
I'm not pretty. I'm good looking.
So that was the trailer for Minari. Owen, what did you think about the film?
So, I love this film. I think it stacks up, incredibly well among the other Best Picture nominees for, the Oscars. In my opinion, this should have won Best Picture, or at least, maybe second or third best, because there were a lot of great films, but I thought this was, incredibly heartwarming, touching, devastating at points, and just overall, fantastically paced film. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it definitely stood up there. Again, I don't know whether it should have won in comparison to Nomadland. Like, I think each of them stand for themselves and their own sort of identity. But I definitely think that this film was one of the more unique films I've seen been nominated for Best Picture. And I think that all credit to just the story of it, the simplicity of it. And Hollywood is a very fast-paced, sort of energetic environment. And I feel like for Minari to be up there, it really means something for the director, but also the kind of storytelling we're getting used to today. And yeah, I thought it was a beautiful film.
Yeah, I mean, so this, Korean family moving from their comfortable life in California to Arkansas in basically the middle of nowhere, this, tiny town. And from the trailer to the film, I was shocked at the, general tone of the film, because it was very lighthearted at times, but also incredibly depressing. But, from the trailer, I thought just by the looks that these native Arkansas, people were giving the family, that they were going to be very abrasive, very, not welcoming. And that's not really the, reception they got. I mean, initially, when they're in the church, and that little boy is staring back at, sorry, what's the boy's name? David.
Yeah.
You think, oh God, this is about to be some bully. And then he's like, hey, you want to sleep over at my house? Thought it was very, like I said, touching, heartwarming. And I just thought it was a great reception they got. Do you think that, this is something that could maybe happen, back in, I don't know, whenever this takes place, like the 70s, 80s?
Yeah, I think it could definitely happen. I mean, I'm not sure about how the local natives of Arkansas would have reacted to that situation. But I think one thing the film did was get into the universal truth of the American dream, which I think is very relatable. This family with two young kids coming in to this environment that is foreign and kind of making a life for themselves. So I think that it could be, yeah.
Yeah. In terms of like the acting performances, did anyone stand out in particular for you?
I think the little boy, David, definitely did. But I also think the father, like, I think the mother also had an amazing level of performance. I think the father is the one that needed to stick it together to sort of carry the film because he was the head of the family and he was portrayed as the one that has got them into this circumstance and the one that needs to control it, typically. But I think his acting, I didn't see much of it, but I think that he stood as the center of the family, which is what I really appreciated.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, throughout the whole film, Stephen Yuen's character, I thought he did a fantastic job. And kind of the whole time I was thinking, is he a good dad? And I don't know if that was even fair for me to be asking because almost every scene we watch, he's doing like this backbreaking labor, he's breeding the little chicks and just always working. But then, he doesn't really have, we only see a few, scenes where he's making a connection with David or Anne, and we didn't see too much of Anne. You think there's any like reason why, we saw more of David's character? Do you think maybe it was like kind of the connection with the grandma we were watching?
Yeah, I think like we discussed before, I think each character had a symbol. So just as the dad had the symbol of struggle and sort of dreams, David represented immaturity and curiosity. And I think and David's character did enable the film to be pushed forward, especially because he also introduced a vulnerability factor where he did have a medical condition. And I think that David also did have the most unique relationship with his grandmother because he was so disapproving of her in the beginning. And I think that disapproval led to love. So there's a story in that as well. So I think David, as a symbol of immaturity, carried it to the point that we could actually understand an American sort of raised little boy versus a traditional Korean grandmother and that dynamic. So I think David,
Yeah, it was definitely a large like culture clash. That was kind of the one of the main points of the film. And I like how we see David and Anne's characters very much Americanized. They don't have accents. They have American friends, and they seem pretty much in tune with the culture around them. Like they love Mountain Dew and playing these card games. And then on the other hand, you have their parents and their grandmother who kind of represent the Korean culture. But in a sense, their parents, Jacob and his wife, they're kind of in between. They have one foot in each camp, so to speak. And I like how they keep parts of their culture like the Minari and the card game, and also have parts of American culture too.
Yeah, I think culture, it's this. I mean, in the film at least, culture is shown in the most like nuanced ways, and I say this about a lot of films. But I think there's some odd sense of relatability I got between, as like have been growing up with like Asian parents. I think that there is this subtle sense of, I don't know, tradition. Like we see like the grandmother coming and taking care of the kids, and like the dynamic between the sister and the brother, or like the sort of mild authority she imposes on him and makes the decisions at such a young age. I think that culture has been portrayed in a very accurate way in the sense of it's relatable to everyone. And I think because the film does have a story, but it has a very like streamlined story where nothing much happens until maybe the very end. But I think that the thing that carries the film is the references and the dynamic between the characters instead of actually the story itself.
Yeah, totally.
Which is, I think, how culture helps play it out. Yeah.
Well, we'll have more about Minari after the break.
Welcome back. So, Owen, what did you think about, I mean, in terms of the highs and lows of the film, what do you think about the implications of those, and which moments did you think highlighted that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked me about that because, you know, I found this movie to be incredibly uplifting, like I've been saying, but also, you know, in those high moments, there's just a lot of dialogue that just makes you go, wow. Like, that is on the nose, very blunt. And a lot of that dialogue comes from David, the little boy, whose character I found one of the most relatable. You know, in those moments where he's talking to his grandmother, there are several points where he says, you're not a real grandmother, you don't, you know, bake cookies or, you know, talk nice, like you swear, you smell like Korea. And kids can be so just blunt, and you know exactly what he's thinking, and though he doesn't mean it, you know, he's what, maybe 8 or 9 years old, he can be so funny, but at the same time be so cruel.
Yeah. And I think that is the importance of David in the film. The truth, the sort of vulnerability again. Yeah. What did you think about, I mean, the stylistic choices of the film?
I thought really good. I mean, I thought the cinematography was incredible, and the soundtrack perfectly like complemented a lot of that cinematography of you know, just the rural, you know, panning shots of the fields, and it made you hopeful. It made you know, long for Jacob and his family to get their, you know, stuff together and for them to be on the right path, and it's all the more detrimental. Well, I mean, in a good way to the film. At the end when their produce catches on fire and they almost die. But you know, in that last scene, it's kind of funny how, and ironic in a sense, how that tragedy of them losing all that they've worked for brings the family together and is uplifting at the end. What did you think about the ending?
I think the ending was nice, and I think that, I mean, it was shocking, and I did feel a sense of something, and I think I would sort of credit that to the cinematography, because I think in the cinematography has a very isolative element to it, where it's wide all the time. You can see their relationship with the land, and which is unique for, I mean, a film about the American dream to be so close to nature and so like sort of coexistent. And I think that because throughout the film we get so much of, you know, them in the field and him farming, and sort of he says that I don't want to give up my dream or what he started, and then it sort of ends in the fire. I think that there is also meaning in the fact that the grandmom is associated with the fire in some sense, and the fire also symbolizes the end of something, but it also symbolizes the beginning of this family relationship that has been now understood by everyone. And you know how like the mom and dad argue before that, and then they kind of come together in the end during the fire. I think it's the fire symbolizes again like that unity, and it lets that unity take place. And then and the ending isn't sad then after that, you know, it's still hopeful. Which is still what I think the American dream is. It's like you go down, but you still hope for something more.
It leaves us kind of curious as to what happened to the grandmother, you know, what happened to Jacob and his family, and you know, they've been working so hard throughout the film, they haven't really had time to kind of come together. And so, I just love how this tragedy brings them together, and the cinematography of like just the you know, natural shots and the farmland really just made me feel like I was there. I mean, I could relate to it, but you know, I've never been to like rural Arkansas. I've never been in a setting like this, but you know, the fact that it was set back in time and in this very specific place with these people, you know, it just felt very appropriate.
And I feel like it also enabled us to live every single moment with the characters that films rarely do. But I feel like the less of the fact that there were not as many characters and such deep-rooted like instances we go through with them, I feel like you're right. We did live every moment with them and sort of feel like one.
What did you think about the locals of Arkansas, you know, the guy carrying the cross who helps them out on the farm, and, you know, the pastor, those characters?
I think they were all like inserts of sort of American culture in a sense. Like I mean, obviously church and like the this integration into the same religion but different sort of race. That was very interesting to me. And when they stood up at church, like the fact that everyone like clapped for them and like they were welcoming so nicely, I feel like Arkansas, like at least rural Arkansas, really defied my expectations of what it was. But I think that, again, at the end of it, it comes down to humanity.
Yeah.
And what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was asking you earlier, like, do you think this could actually happen? I was kind of, in the back of my mind thinking, like, would Arkansas, people be this accepting and this embracing of people from another culture who don't speak the language super well? But the church scene definitely surprised me, and, the people coming up to the kids and the people talking to Jacob and his wife, just being so accepting. It was very nice to see.
And I think a lot of credit to that goes to the kids themselves and the way they dealt with it, because there were instances of judgment and questioning that the kids were posed with, but handled it extremely well. So I think it's also very, again, honest. And it's not like conceited in any way.
Yeah, I think the kids were definitely wise beyond their years and added a lot to the film.
Yeah.
So if you could rate this, what would you give it?
Honestly, I would give it like an 8.5 or a 9.
Yeah.
10 if I wanted, but...
I think I might have to give this a 10. Like, I can't think of anything else that would have improved this film or anything I would take out, anything I would add to make it better.
Okay, now that you say that, I give it a 10 also.
To me, and also because... this is my last review for Review Crew.
Yeah.
I gotta end it off with a high note.
Get the
so
10.
10 out of 10 for me. We'll be right back after the break. That's all for this week. If you want to follow more Review Crew content, go to the Review Crew Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as Orange TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube.
Find the Review Q's podcast on Spotify or on our website at orangetvnetwork.syr.edu, where you can also find our blog and more OTN information.
Well,
that's all for now.
It's been a blast.
See you.
See you when we see you.